Forgiveness. It's a word that's thrown around like a universal remedy for relationship problems. Society tells you that forgiveness is always the right choice, that true love means overlooking flaws, mistakes, and even betrayals. But here's the truth that no one wants to talk about. Some actions are unforgivable. And until you realize that, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of disrespect, manipulation, and emotional pain. You've been told that a real man forgives because everyone makes mistakes, right? That forgiveness is a virtue, a sign of strength. But what if that very idea is keeping you in relationships where your dignity, trust, and emotional well-being are being chipped away piece by piece? This is a tough pill to swallow, but it's a crucial one. When you constantly forgive actions that cross your boundaries, whether it's lies, betrayal, or emotional abuse, you're not being noble. You're not being strong. You're enabling disrespect. And you're allowing someone to get away with behavior that will never change, no matter how many chances you give. What if you could finally stop feeling guilty for setting boundaries? What if you could understand that some things should never be forgiven? And doing so doesn't make you weak, makes you strong. Strong enough to protect yourself, to demand respect, and to finally walk away from toxic dynamics that drain you. That's what we're diving into today. The myth of unconditional forgiveness is one that keeps men trapped, but by the end of this, you'll see why it's time to stop forgiving the unforgivable. Let's talk about how forgiveness can be weaponized in a relationship. If you've ever forgiven a woman after a betrayal or emotional blow, you might have felt like you were doing the right thing. But what if that forgiveness wasn't about healing or rebuilding trust, but about gaining control over you? Here's the reality. Forgiveness isn't always a sign of growth. It can be used as a tool of manipulation. How many times have you heard, "I promise I'll change this time," or "You know how much I love you, why can't you just forgive me?" These are classic guilt-tripping tactics that don't reflect remorse or genuine change. They reflect a desire to keep you in line. I want you to think back to a time when you forgave a woman for something that hurt you deeply. Maybe she lied. Maybe she cheated. Maybe she disrespected you. In the moment, you might have believed that forgiving her would make everything better, that things would improve. But what actually happened? If you're honest with yourself, it's likely you saw the same behavior repeat itself. The cycle continued. This is where the manipulation comes in. Women, just like men, are capable of using forgiveness to keep you invested in a relationship that's going nowhere. They know that once they get you to forgive, it weakens your ability to walk away. You get caught in the false hope that things will change, that love will fix the problem, or that it's your duty to support them. But deep down, you know it's the same script playing out over and over. Most men have been here. Now they've learned the hard way. You might have thought that you were strong for forgiving, that you were being the bigger person. But in reality, the person who benefits from this is not you, it's her. You forgive, she feels relief, and the cycle begins again. And you end up with nothing but frustration and a diminished sense of self-respect. The truth is, forgiveness, in these cases, is not a pathway to healing, it's a trap. And until you recognize it, you'll keep falling into it. Let's get real. There are certain behaviors in a relationship that should never, under any circumstances, be forgiven. Not because you're cold-hearted or vengeful, but because forgiving these actions undermines your self-respect, your dignity, and your future happiness. These aren't small missteps or minor issues. These are deal breakers. And if you ignore them, you're setting yourself up for endless cycles of pain and betrayal. Let's break down the 3 biggest offenses you should never forgive. 1. Betrayal, cheating. Let's start with the obvious one, cheating. It's not just the physical act of infidelity, it's the emotional betrayal. It's the destruction of trust and the blatant disrespect of the bond you shared. When a woman cheats on you, she's telling you something far deeper than "I made a mistake." She's telling you that you are no longer a priority, that your trust is something she's willing to throw away for a fleeting moment of excitement or validation. Think about this. The person you thought you knew, the woman you believed in, went behind your back and betrayed you. And when she comes back and begs for forgiveness, what exactly are you forgiving? Her actions are a direct assault on your worth. You can't just move on from that. It's a wound that doesn't heal with empty promises. Forgiving cheating is like ignoring a broken bone and pretending it doesn't need treatment. You might rationalize it, thinking maybe it was just a one-time thing, or she's really sorry, and we can rebuild trust. But let's be honest, cheating is a pattern. It's a symptom of a much deeper issue, and forgiving it doesn't magically make her faithful again. The trust has been shattered. You'll never look at her the same way, and no matter how many apologies she gives, that doubt will always linger too. Disrespect, emotional or verbal abuse. Next up is disrespect. And I'm not talking about the occasional argument or heated moment. I'm talking about emotional abuse, verbal attacks, or any form of behavior that diminishes your worth as a person. This could be anything from constant belittling and name-calling to undermining you in front of others, or manipulating you emotionally. This type of behavior is poison in a relationship, and here's why. When someone disrespects you, they are trying to control you. They want to break you down, make you question your worth, and leave you feeling helpless and small. It's not a misunderstanding or an argument gone wrong. It's a deliberate effort to break your spirit. Imagine being with a woman who constantly puts you down, who calls you weak or pathetic, who makes you feel like you're not enough. Maybe you think she's just having a bad day or she doesn't really mean it. But here's the thing. Words have power. And over time, the more she disrespects you, the more you start to believe it. You start to accept less than you deserve. Let me be clear. No one should ever talk down to you like that. No one has the right to undermine your value or make you feel inferior. Disrespect in any form is a red flag. And if you forgive it, you're telling her that you accept the role of being her emotional punching bag. You deserve better, and forgiving disrespect is just you enabling more of it. 3. Dishonesty. Lying about important matters. Dishonesty might be the hardest one to deal with because it's often subtle. It starts with small lies. Maybe she tells you she was just out with friends when she was really out with someone else. Maybe she says she's too busy to spend time with you, but is posting pictures all over social media. These aren't just little white lies. They are indications that she's not being truthful about things that matter. And the problem with dishonesty is that once the trust is gone, it's impossible to rebuild. You might think, oh, she's just avoiding conflict, or she didn't want to hurt my feelings. But at the core of dishonesty is a lack of respect. If she can lie to you about important matters, whether it's her whereabouts, her feelings, or something else significant, how can you ever trust her again? And once trust is gone, everything else crumbles. There's a deep cost to being lied to. Your peace of mind, your confidence, and your ability to trust others in the future. Forgiving dishonesty may seem like the right thing to do in the moment, especially if you're afraid of confrontation or losing her. But what you're really forgiving is the breakdown of integrity in your relationship. You're allowing her to create a world where she gets to manipulate the truth and shape your reality to her liking. You might argue, but everyone lies sometimes. Sure, some small, harmless lies are inevitable, but this is different. This is the kind of dishonesty that erodes the foundation of everything you've built together. This is the kind of dishonesty that prepares the ground for future betrayal. Why these behaviors should never be forgiven. You might be tempted to forgive these actions, cheating, disrespect, dishonesty, because you love her, because you don't want to be alone, or because you believe in second chances. But here's the hard truth. Forgiving these behaviors isn't about healing. It's about enabling. Enabling her to treat you like you don't matter. Enabling a toxic cycle that you'll be stuck in. Time and time again, these 3 behaviors, cheating, disrespect, and dishonesty, are non-negotiable. They break the trust, break your spirit, and break any hope of a healthy, lasting relationship. Forgiving them means you're telling her and yourself that your boundaries don't matter. And that's something you should never allow. If you continue to forgive these actions, you're not protecting the relationship. You're protecting her ability to hurt you. And that's not love. That's a trap. Forgiving the unforgivable may seem like the compassionate or noble thing to do. But let's break down the real impact of this kind of forgiveness and why it's more harmful than you might think. Sure, in the short term, you may feel a temporary sense of relief, like the weight has been lifted off your shoulders. You forgive, you make peace, and maybe things feel a bit smoother for a while. But that initial high is just a band-aid over a much deeper wound that never fully heals. Here's the thing. Repeated forgiveness doesn't fix the problem. It just erodes your self-respect. Every time you forgive someone for crossing your boundaries, whether it's cheating, lying, or disrespecting you in some way, you're telling yourself that you're willing to accept less than you deserve. You're telling yourself that your value is negotiable, and that slowly starts to chip away at your self-esteem, because deep down, you know you're settling. You know you're letting someone repeatedly hurt you on. You're doing it in the name of love, or the hope that things will change. But they won't. Let's consider what this does to trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. But once it's broken, it's never the same. Forgiving toxic behavior doesn't rebuild that trust, it weakens it. Every time you forgive, you're sending the message that betrayal doesn't matter, that words and promises are cheap. And even if you want to believe that things will get better, your subconscious knows better. The next time she says she's sorry, you'll remember the last time she said the exact same thing and the time before that. Trust becomes a fragile thing, easily shattered, and harder to rebuild with each passing incident. This is where the psychological cost starts to mount. The emotional toll of continually forgiving someone who keeps repeating the same toxic behavior is enormous. It creates cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two conflicting beliefs, the desire to forgive and the knowledge that nothing is changing. Your mind begins to fight against itself, trying to reconcile your actions, forgiving, with the reality of the situation, being hurt over and over. Over time, this leads to anxiety, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. You start doubting yourself, your judgment, and your worth. Now, let's talk about the long-term consequences. If you keep forgiving toxic behaviors, you'll find yourself stuck in a never-ending cycle of pain and disappointment. You'll stay in relationships that drain you, thinking that somehow this time will be different. But it won't. It can't. Nothing changes until you decide to change it. Every time you forgive without enforcing boundaries, you're training her and yourself that the cycle of hurt can continue without consequences. You might think, it's not that bad. I love her. I don't want to lose her. But here's the thing you need to understand. The longer you stay stuck in this cycle, the more damage is done. Your sense of self-worth takes a hit. The trust you have in others begins to erode. And perhaps most importantly, your future relationships will be colored by this experience. You'll either carry unresolved baggage that you haven't dealt with, or you'll become overly cautious, finding it hard to fully open up to someone new because you've learned that forgiveness doesn't always mean things will get better. This is where the FOMO kicks in. You'll stay stuck in a cycle you can't break unless you make a decision to stop. You can keep forgiving, keep hoping, keep pretending that one day things will magically get better. Or you can choose to take control of your life, set boundaries, and recognize that your peace of mind is worth more than tolerating someone else's toxic behavior. You have to understand that forgiving the unforgivable is not about being the bigger person. It's about protecting your dignity and emotional health. Forgiving toxic behavior may feel good in the short term, but the long-term impact will leave you emotionally drained and mistrusting. You'll end up with more scars than you bargained for, and a deep sense of regret for not standing up for yourself sooner. So, if you want to break free from this cycle and regain control of your future, you need to stop forgiving the things that should never be forgiven. Because until you do, you'll always be stuck in this pattern of disappointment, hoping that one day it will be different. But it won't be, unless you make the decision to break the cycle now. Let's talk about one of the biggest fears men face in relationships: the fear of being alone. It's a fear that can feel all-consuming at times, like a weight that drags you down every time you think about ending a relationship, especially when things have gone wrong. I get it. You've been there. I've been there. The loneliness creeps in, and suddenly the thought of facing the world without someone beside you feels like a death sentence. You start to think that being alone is worse than tolerating the pain of a toxic relationship. But here's the truth that you need to hear. Staying in a bad relationship for the sake of avoiding loneliness isn't just painful, it's dangerous. It chips away at your dignity, your self-worth, and your emotional health. And while the fear of loneliness feels real, maybe even paralyzing, the damage it causes when you tolerate disrespect or toxic behavior is far worse than anything you could experience alone. The problem is, we've been conditioned to believe that being in a relationship defines us. Society tells us that being single is somehow a failure, and that we need someone to feel validated. But that's not the reality. The truth is, you cannot thrive in a relationship if you don't first know how to thrive on your own. Think about it. When you're stuck in a relationship because you're afraid of being alone, what are you really giving up? Your peace of mind, your confidence, your ability to stand up for yourself. The fear of being alone tricks you into thinking that you can't live without someone by your side. But what you're really doing is trading your self-respect for the illusion of Conte. My only lipstick for Dumday Cantel. Ruby Kiss, Molosky, Tess. Only Ruby Kiss. Only Ruby Kiss has the luxurious texture that glides on. My companionship now contrasts that with learning how to thrive alone. When you build your self-respect, when you get comfortable with your own company, something incredible happens. You stop tolerating anything less than what you truly deserve. You start to realize that being with someone who respects you and values you is the real prize, not just avoiding the emptiness of being single. And the best part? The longer you embrace and work on yourself, the less you fear loneliness. You become your own source of strength and validation. And that's something no toxic relationship can ever give you. I know it's hard to break out of the cycle, and the fear of loneliness can feel suffocating. But ask yourself this: would you rather face the discomfort of being alone for a while, or the much greater pain of staying in a relationship where your dignity is constantly on the line? The truth is, self-respect and solitude are the keys to becoming the strongest version of yourself. And once you get there, you'll realize that being alone doesn't mean being weak. It means you're strong enough to walk away from anything that doesn't honor your worth. If you've been betrayed, whether through cheating, dishonesty, or emotional manipulation, you're probably left with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, confusion, pain, and maybe even guilt. It's natural to struggle with whether or not to forgive, especially when the person who hurt you is begging for another chance. But here's the truth: forgiveness is not a step toward healing, it's a decision to protect your future. And to truly rebuild after betrayal, you need to take control of your emotional well-being and put yourself first. This isn't about holding a grudge, it's about empowering yourself to never find yourself in that situation again. Here are the key steps to take for healing and self-protection. 1. Set boundaries like a fortress. The first and most crucial step is setting clear, non-negotiable boundaries. When someone betrays you, they've shown you exactly how much they're willing to disrespect your limits. Moving forward, you need to make it crystal clear what behavior is unacceptable and stick to it, whether it's lying, manipulation, or crossing emotional or physical boundaries. Let people know that crossing the line won't be tolerated. Start with yourself. What are your boundaries? Do you tolerate dishonesty? Do you allow disrespect? If you do, then it's time to redefine those boundaries and commit to holding them, no matter what. This is the first step to rebuilding your self-respect and protecting your peace too. Take time for self-reflection. Before you jump into another relationship, take the time to heal. Self-reflection is vital. Ask yourself, what did I ignore that led to this betrayal? What red flags did I overlook? The answers to these questions will guide you in understanding the patterns that led to the hurt, so you don't repeat them. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about understanding the dynamics that were at play so you can spot them in the future. Self-awareness is the key to avoiding the same mistakes. 3. Learn to identify red flags early. Betrayal doesn't happen overnight. It's usually the result of a series of small warning signs that were either ignored or minimized. Trust your instincts and learn to identify red flags early on. These can include inconsistent behavior, sudden emotional distance, or manipulative actions designed to undermine your confidence or control your decisions. Next time you feel something is off, don't ignore it. Recognize it as a red flag and take action immediately. Trusting your gut can save you months or even years of pain down the road. For focus on self-care and emotional healing. Healing after betrayal means reclaiming your emotional energy. Focus on your mental health exercise. Eat well. Pick up hobbies. Reconnect with friends. The more you fill your life with healthy habits and positive influences, the easier it will be to regain your sense of self-worth and emotional resilience. Take time for self-care. Invest in activities and relationships that lift you up. Rebuild the parts of your life that the betrayal tried to tear down. You owe it to yourself to be the best version of you. Whether or not someone else is in the picture. 5. Don't rush into another relationship. The worst thing you can do after a betrayal is to jump straight into another relationship in an attempt to fill the void. You need to take time to learn who you are again. You're not defined by the relationship you were in, and you don't need another partner to feel complete. Instead, focus on your own growth and self-discovery. Take your time to heal. If you don't, you'll find yourself repeating the same mistakes. You'll bring the same emotional baggage into your next relationship, and that cycle of pain will continue. Only when you've fully healed and are confident in your own self-worth will you be ready for something healthy and fulfilling. Protect yourself now. If you don't take these steps now, you'll find yourself repeating the same mistakes, falling into toxic patterns, ignoring red flags, and allowing betrayal to happen again. But by following these steps, you'll gain clarity, control, and, most importantly, you'll regain your self-respect. And when you do that, the right relationship will follow. Not because you're seeking to fill a void, but because you're strong, whole, and ready to choose someone who adds value to your life, not someone who takes it away. Rebuilding after betrayal isn't easy, but it's necessary. The pain is real, but the strength you'll gain from this experience will shape you into someone who won't tolerate disrespect ever again. And that's the best protection you can have moving forward. Staying in a toxic relationship, one filled with betrayal, dishonesty, or emotional manipulation, might seem like the easier option in the short term. But the reality is, the cost of tolerating toxic behavior goes far beyond the immediate discomfort of confrontation or breakup. The emotional, mental, and physical toll it takes on a man's life is often devastating and long-lasting. First, let's talk about the emotional toll. Constant betrayal and disrespect wear you down piece by piece. At first, it might be subtle little lies, broken promises, or small instances of emotional neglect. But over time, this adds up. Your self-worth gets eroded, and you start doubting yourself. You question your judgment, your value, and your ability to make good decisions. Men in this situation often report feelings of anxiety, depression, and helplessness. They feel trapped, either too afraid to leave or too invested to walk away. Take the case of James, a man in his late 30s who stayed with his girlfriend for several years. Despite knowing she had been cheating and emotionally manipulating him, he constantly forgave her, hoping she'd change. But over time, James began to lose his sense of identity. His confidence plummeted, and he became withdrawn. He neglected his career, his physical health, and even his friendships. By the time he finally broke free, years had been wasted, and the damage to his mental health was profound. The mental toll of staying in a toxic relationship is even more insidious. It affects your focus, your ability to make clear decisions, and your overall sense of mental clarity. Studies have shown that chronic stress and emotional exhaustion from toxic relationships can actually shrink the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation. So, when you're stuck in a relationship where you're constantly worried, second-guessing your partner's intentions, or battling with guilt, you're literally damaging your brain. Finally, let's look at the physical toll. The stress from emotional turmoil isn't just something you get over. It leads to real physical consequences. Poor sleep, weight gain or loss, heart problems, and weakened immune function. Stress hormones like cortisol spike when you're constantly in a state of emotional distress, and this chronic stress can increase the risk of long-term health problems. The pain of breaking up with someone who has betrayed or hurt you might feel excruciating in the moment. You'll experience grief, loss, and perhaps loneliness. But in the long run, the freedom of walking away from toxic behavior is priceless. When you let go of the emotional chains that hold you back, you'll begin to experience a weight lifted off your shoulders. Your mind clears, your confidence returns, and your life regains focus. You'll have the mental space to rebuild your career, your health, and your happiness. Choosing to stay in a toxic relationship might seem like an option that keeps the peace or avoids confrontation. But the real cost is your life. And when you realize that, walking away becomes not only a way to protect yourself, but a path to reclaiming your future. It's time to raise your standards, not just for your relationships, but for how you see and treat yourself. Far too many men spend years tolerating disrespect, dishonesty, and emotional manipulation because they've been conditioned to believe they have to accept less in order to keep the peace or avoid being alone. But here's the hard truth. You don't have to settle for anything less than respect, honesty, and loyalty. You have the right to demand these things in your relationships. And it's time you started doing just that. Setting new standards for your relationships begins with recognizing your own worth. It means understanding that you are valuable and your time, energy, and emotional well-being deserve to be treated with care. You are worthy of respect, and if someone can't offer that, they don't belong in your life. This is where your journey begins, accepting that you are enough as you are, and that you deserve to be treated with the same level of dignity and respect you give to others. But knowing your worth is only the first step. Setting boundaries is where you turn that awareness into action. Boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out their lines that define what behavior is acceptable and what is not. When you set boundaries, you send a clear message. I respect myself, and I expect you to do the same. And here's the crucial part. You have to enforce them. This might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to letting things slide. But the reality is, the more you tolerate, the more people will push. You have to stop accepting poor treatment and instead hold firm when someone crosses your boundaries. Whether it's standing up to disrespect, walking away from dishonesty, or refusing to tolerate emotional manipulation, boundaries protect your peace. And more importantly, they protect your future happiness. So, how do you start? Here's a simple framework to follow. Know your values. What matters most to you? Trust, loyalty, communication. Identifying your core values will guide the boundaries you set. Communicate clearly. Be direct and clear when setting your boundaries. It's not about being aggressive, it's about being honest and assertive. Enforce and follow. True boundaries are meaningless if you don't follow through. If someone crosses the line, take action, whether that means having a conversation, taking space, or ending the relationship. Respect yourself first. Remember that boundaries are not just for protecting you from others. They're also for protecting you from yourself. If you find yourself rationalizing or excusing bad behavior, take a step back and ask, am I respecting my own worth in this situation? The moment you start demanding respect and setting boundaries, you'll begin to feel a shift. You'll feel empowered, not just in your relationships, but in every area of your life. You'll regain control over your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. Here's the FOMO truth. If you don't raise your standards now, you risk losing yourself in the process. You'll continue to attract the same toxic relationships, continue to feel unworthy, and continue to put others' needs above your own. But when you raise your standards and enforce your boundaries, you'll find that the relationships you want, respectful, honest, and loyal, are the ones that will start coming into your life. Don't wait until you've lost yourself completely. Set your new standard now and reclaim the life and relationships you truly deserve. To sum it up, some actions are simply unforgivable. Betrayal, dishonesty, and disrespect are non-negotiable. Your self-respect and emotional well-being are worth more than any relationship that demands compromise. It's time for you to take control of your future. Set firm boundaries and never tolerate toxic behavior again. You deserve respect, loyalty, and honesty. And only when you raise your standards will you attract the relationships that align with your true worth. Now, it's your turn. Share your story, commit to change, and start living a life where you never settle for less than you deserve. The power is in your hands.